Hello and welcome to the King Chamber of Commerce first podcast series. I am Trish Maguire, a board member with the Chamber, and over the next few months, we'll be interviewing a variety of small business owners from across our township. The purpose of the interviews is to bring you, our members, stories from our local business owners about the beginnings of their businesses, their successes, strategies for growth, leadership philosophies, how they have navigated challenges, along with their personal learnings and insights that have helped them establish what to continue doing and what they needed to start doing differently. For our first interview today, I'd like to welcome Michelle Frauley, CEO and founder of HosPall Private Homecare in King Township since 2013. Michelle and her team were our 2020 winners for the Excellence in a New Business Award and also for the People's Choice Award. There are two parts to Michelle's interview. For today, we will be focusing on what sparked Michelle's aspirations for launching HosPall Private Homecare and have her tell us about her journey up until 2020 when COVID-19 arrived. Part two will be continued in our next podcast, where we will be focusing on how Michelle and her team have learned to navigate the impact of COVID-19, along with Michelle's vision for the future of HosPall Private Home Care. Thank you so much for taking time. I know that you're incredibly busy right now, particularly with the way we're going with COVID and what we've just heard today. What I'd love to start with is giving our members an understanding, because the purpose of us meeting with you when we saw that you are winners of People's Choice and the Excellence in the New Business is to tell your story so they can hopefully see, even if it's one little thing that they resonate with that makes them go, yes, it is worth it. And that's what I was explaining to our board, the Chamber of Commerce, which I think that's important for people to hear. So when I look at your background, you have this amazing progressive working in different areas, different levels, different size organizations of the whole healthcare space. So tell us a little bit about how did all of that prepare you or incite you to thinking about, I would love to do something different because of what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing, and what I'm sensing with the clients?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for doing the podcast today, Trish, and I hope that it does inspire other people that are thinking about creating business, just to know that they're capable of doing exactly what I have done in a different capacity, perhaps. Over the many years of nursing, I moved around on purpose into many different areas, trying to train myself every 4 years, I felt that it was time to move and to learn a new experience and to learn how to adjust to change, because as we know, the older we get, the harder it is to have change. And so with all my experiences, I never did believe that I would ever be sitting here as the CEO of HosPall Private Home Care. I was a nurse for many years. I'm still a nurse. And how it evolved was basically it kind of just fell on my lap, to be honest. And, from there, I was able to have some guidance on what it would be to potentially be a business owner and what I could do to make a difference in society with my knowledge base and my heart, and just wanting to give back to the community, and particularly to seniors.
So that I was just going to pick up. So what was it that sort of allowed you to collect all of that experience and then zone in on home care, seniors, that was a need, and that's where you could make the biggest difference, and that would give you the fulfillment and sense of giving back?
My grandparents were a huge part of my life, and as they aged, and as their health declined and eventually they passed, it made me take a different step back as a nurse and a granddaughter, and just to see the limitations that were offered at that time, which was, over 10 years ago. And I felt that there was huge gaps between advocacy for seniors, and patients that were single, that didn't have an advocate. And how could it be that we could help people simply that were just in the hospital and needed someone to advocate for them, or someone that needed to call their doctor's office that perhaps didn't know the medical lingo? And so from there, for my grandparents, and then working, in different areas of nursing, I started to see those gaps more. And I started to always feel that I know I could make a difference here. And I didn't know at the time what that difference was. I just knew that I love being a nurse. I love making people smile, holding their hand when they're passing away. And I just love to just overall make a difference. And so with that being said, as things evolved, there was an older couple that I knew of, and the gentleman had asked if I could help him to pass away at home. And I didn't really know what he meant by that. And so we had a little lunch meeting, and he said, you're working as a palliative care nurse, and can you get some of your friends together and help it that I pass away at home, because my wife has dementia and I'm a primary caregiver and I don't want to die in hospital or a hospice. And I said, wow, I don't know if I can do that. And I wouldn't even know where to begin. And he said, use your heart. What would you do if your grandparents were still alive to advocate for them? And so I basically used those two tools, and I gathered some friends that were nurses, and we helped this gentleman to have end of life at home. And from there, my mind was just always spinning. It was always spinning about, I was always very fulfilled in my primary duties as a nurse, working in a physician's office or at the hospital in palliative care. But I always felt that there was more that Michelle could offer. And so it's kind of like, if you know that, when you go to school and you graduate and then you think, oh, okay, now what?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there another course I can take? So I've always felt that, and been told, and I don't mean that to put on my back, is that, Michelle, you have a gift and you need to do something with that. But I just never knew what it was all those years. And so I was always, thinking, oh, I wish I would have got into medicine. Oh, I wish I would have. And then I realized that as a nurse, I love what I'm doing, but I can do more. And so I basically used my passion and my knowledge base as a nurse. But what drove me the most was just my passion to advocate and make a difference. And I educated myself on what it would be to how would I create a business.
Right. So, and I know that in our earlier conversations that we've had just together is, I think both of you and I come from the same page. Lifelong learning is a critical piece of that. Right? So as that new business owner, and even just thinking about launching, how did you experience the creation of HosPall? Because I think it has a very special meaning. And I think it, along with your values, sort of gives you a touchstone that allows you to use that as a touchstone for you, so as a leader.
Absolutely. And so I think it's very important when we're choosing a business name or we're choosing our logo, that it's a reflection of what it is that you're trying to do with your business. And it's a way that people can look at a logo or a name and go, oh, yeah. And so I took some great deal of time to think about, I'm very passionate about holistic care. And so holistic is, families, extensions of families, health care providers, doctors, yoga instructors. So I'm very much about Eastern and Western medicine being brought together. Mm-hmm. And then I was, okay, basically, what do I want to create here? Well, I want to create a hospital, but a palliative as well. So I want to have it that my name is reflective of that. And so the name HosPall came together. Mm-hmm. And then when I thought about the logo, I was sitting at the time with my fiance, and he basically was from the East Coast, and he said, oh, my dad loved lighthouses, and he was showing me pictures of all these lighthouses in the East Coast and I was like, wow. And I love boating. And
Mhm.
I'm like, lighthouses help us find our way home.
Mhm.
And so then I was looking at the beams from the lighthouse shining in pictures and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is very symbolic, in the sense that, a lighthouse does help us find our way home. And so that can help at end of life, right? That can also share light into helping us to be able to stay at home and give us hope. And so that's where the lighthouse came from. Also, I put a hand under the lighthouse, which means rising up. And it's an extension of one's hand that's at home, whether they're at home because they are in rehabilitation, because of having surgery, whether they're a senior that is wanting to stay at home and not be institutionalized, or they're a senior that is, or anyone that is wanting to have palliative care end of life at home, is that we are a third hand. We're not there to tell them what to do. We're there as an extension of their two hands. So when we look at the lighthouse and we look at the word HosPall, again, this comes back to my passion of holistic care, heart, the light, the hand, bringing everything together.
Okay, that's neat. And it does do that, because I found when I first met you that when I looked at the logo, it made me stop and think. And I
Mhm.
think that alone is a major statement. So what I'm curious about is, so, typically, and I know you're of that space, which is around the power that a vision, a mission, and values have. So here you've got your touchstone, which is your logo. You've got the name. Did the vision, mission, did one of them come first? Did one lead to the other? Was that all part of your learning?
The vision was believing that, number one, seniors deserved a lot more than what I believed that they were getting and where the society was giving. And so I was, like I said in the beginning, as my grandparents were very, very special to me and a very important part of my whole being. And we would have lots of talks. And, I remember my grandfather and my Nana saying to me that, kid, we work so hard. And then at the end of it, what's there for us, really, right? Unless you have, stashed away a lot of money, there's not a lot of help for seniors in their home unless it's their children. And then, my grandparents always said, you don't want your children having to be your caregivers because they have a life to live.
Right.
And so when we talk about the vision and the mission, the vision was really easy. I wanted to make a difference, and I knew that I could. And I knew that, I've always done right by my clients / patients. If I've been working in a hospital, I've always treated them as my own being. So I always even say to my staff now, when you go in to take care of Mr. or Mrs. Charlie, please treat them like your own grandparents, or how you would want your grandparents to be treated. And so that was the mission and the vision. They were kind of one of the same, Trish, to be honest.
Okay. Yep.
And then, I brought in the word belief, right?
Yep.
And believe. So basically, what does that mean? It means that, life is a gift,
Mm-hmm.
and I truly believe it is. And we're here on earth to be able to make a difference in that life that we've been given and into those people's lives that we have respectfully reached out and given trust to take care of. And so the vision, the mission was all inside this being here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very easy to deliver that and put that together in words and into our mission statement.
Mm-hmm. And I think, is it 4 values you have? Was it integrity, communication, professionalism, client centricity? Have I missed?
Yes.
Okay. What I noticed was that you've also, which I found my whole career, many organizations leaders, they miss defining what that means. So employees still don't understand, and we're not all on the same page, is what I find when I go into many companies, that this is what client centricity means. This is what we mean for our organization about professionalism. What I'm curious about is, how have you found, when you identified those 4 values and gave the definitions so people understood what we mean by that, how has that helped you create the culture, maintain the culture, enhance the culture that makes HosPall so special?
That's a really great question. Thank you for asking that. It is that when staff are hired, we have an orientation that I myself lead. Pre-COVID days, we would do that in our office, and it would be a 4-hour orientation session. And we would do a slideshow, and also I would be at the table talking. And a huge part of the orientation is the culture of HosPall and what my desires are to make a difference, and the type of people that I want to hire to represent our organization. And I'm going to be honest, I had a lot of people, a lot of time just kind of,
Yeah.
I'm serious, right?
Oh, I totally believe you.
And you know, a couple of people would say, I've never worked for a company like this before. Like, this is really something. I've never been to an orientation session like this before, because I believe that anyone can have a job, but not anyone can be the right caregiver. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if any fields that we are in, is that when you are going to work as a caregiver, whether that's as a PSW, a companion, or a nurse, is that you must lead with your heart first. And your heart must be into it. And because of the reality is that I've always said, as a nurse, I'm a millionaire not because of my paycheck. I'm a millionaire because of what I get from this job, right? And so yes, certainly. What has it done is, when we had our circle tables, and post-COVID or during COVID, we've been doing Zoom orientation sessions when we've had to hire new staff. And again, I think that culturally, a lot of people struggle to understand where I'm coming from at first. They're just like, oh, okay. So a large part of the module of orientation is about what the expectations are, what our mission and our vision is, and asking people if they feel that they're capable of delivering that. And asking them, one of my favorite interview questions, honestly, is how's your family? How would you consider that your relations are in your family? And I don't do that, and I tell them that they don't need to answer that question. If they feel that that's something they don't feel comfortable about, but it's a getting to know the staff and their families, because for me, this is one big family. They're not just my team of staff. I call them HosPall family. And so it's really important that, I know that, if they talk to me about their family in a not good way, then that kind of gives me a little bit of a lead about, potentially what's going on with them, and what type of caregiver they could be. And so I think ultimately it's just laying the framework from the very beginning. And yes, lots of kind of like, and, but, I think throughout the process, they very quickly get to see. I also go and I take them to introduce them to any new client myself. And they know that from the very beginning, I'm not just their boss. I'm here to be their equal as well. And here to help them to deliver that mission and vision as best that we all can.
Right. So I hear you say, both before COVID, when you were actually doing face-to-face interviews and orientation, and then thanks to COVID, now do virtual. But the expression you used was, when I'm at the table. I did not hear you say, when I'm at the front of the room doing the little blurb. And that's, how did that evolve for you as a leader? I know it's a heart-centric leadership you have. I know it's client-centric leadership that you have. How many times did you find you actually got challenged on putting your heart first in the business itself with the employees?
A lot in the beginning. Yeah, a lot in the beginning because I think that, you know, I mean, no disrespect by saying this either, but we have a vast amount of different cultures on our team. And culturally, people have different ideas of and missions and visions of their own that they come from their upbringing.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things I always said was, please look in people's eyes when you talk to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I learned very quickly that some cultures you're not supposed to do that,
No.
right? And
Right.
so I'd always say, it's okay to touch their hand, and male caregivers would say, "Oh, I'm not supposed to touch a lady's hand," and in my culture,
Yeah.
and so I think every time I go to the table or I go to a Zoom meeting, I'm constantly learning, Trish. That's the truth, right? Because somebody will say something to me and I could take it sometimes constructively. Somebody will say it in a positive way, and I'm learning all the time as well. Is that we're all different, but we can all come together to deliver that vision and that mission if we want to, right?
Yeah.
And so, when I sit at the table, I sit there as their equal, but as a leader. And I always say to them that it doesn't matter if you're a companion, you're a nurse, you're the CEO of HosPall, is that we're all one team. And without any of you at this table, I'm nothing. HosPall is nothing.
Yeah. Was there any in your, not only the huge learning you'd get on a day-by-day basis with the clients and your employees or your team, was there any one or couple of particular sources that you found really helped you begin to pull those thoughts, dreams, visions together into that business model?
I think that, sometimes we've had challenging situations where we've gone into someone's home, into a client's home, and there's been some difficulty within the family units themselves. And then when their parent or their loved one becomes ill, it just kind of vamps up that emotion, right? And so those situations have been challenging for our organization, but as a leader to help guide our team members, right? And on how are we going to best manage all of this? And how are we going to learn from this? And what are we going to take away from this to change our mission, right? Because every single patient / client has a different vision and mission of their own. And so we're not there to take our HosPall has a vision and mission statement, right? But we're not there to go and change people's morals or try to change. But so everybody has a different care plan, right? Every single client that we go into has a different need and a different plan of care. And we as healthcare providers need to adjust to that as best we can in a safe manner.
Right. And are there any, when I hear you say that, are there different techniques, ways, approaches that you find you're sharing with your team to help them be more effective in that conversation with the client / patient? That it's not the tell conversation that's going on, it's the asking, discovering, inviting, keeping the conversation going. Is there any particular approach or technique that you have shared with them? When you hear this, here's a neat way you can try of responding,
right?
As opposed to correcting, which a lot of
right.
people do.
And so in our orientation session, that I do speak about effective communication, open-ended questions. And so, in nursing, that's one of the courses they taught us in first year was how to be an effective listener and how to, basically say back to the patient or the client exactly what they told you. So if you said to me, Trish, I'm feeling really sad today, as a nurse or a caregiver, you would say, so Mrs. Clark, you're feeling sad today? Is that what I'm hearing? And also, is that everybody has a different way to communicate, right? And so communication sometimes is on their face. Are they feeling pain? Are they looking angry, right? And without saying to us. And the other part of that too is just really being a good listener with the patients or the clients that have some memory loss. Sometimes they'll say to me that, or our team, the sky is really dark today. It's really dark outside and it's a really sunny day. Right. And I say to them, you don't have to correct them. You can say, wow, so how are you? You think it's a dark day today? And oh, well, maybe let's see how we can make that a brighter day for you. Or someone that has lost a husband that has not remembered that their husband has passed. Right. And they say, where's Charlie? Well, we don't need to say, Mrs. Smith, Charlie died 10 years ago. Right. Because Mrs. Smith doesn't need to feel that emotion all over again. And so it's up to us, and I always try to educate families to live in our loved ones being, not what we want them to be or what we need them to be. Yeah. And so, if they believe that they want to not wear bloomers and wear a different pair of panties, and you take them shopping, it's usually a larger deal to say, no, you wear bloomers. And it is just to let them buy these fancy undies. Right. And maybe you return them at a later date. Right. But you don't need to say, no, you don't do that. And I always say too, is that, we don't want to tell people what to do, especially, the elderly. We want to encourage them. We make it more about us. So I say to families, if you don't want your mom to drive anymore, sometimes what we can say to our loved one, or Mom, I'm really worried about your driving and it's making me really stressed at home. And so we turn it around. So there's ways to get people to get to the goal that you want them to get to, because we believe that it's going to be for their overall well-being. But instead of telling them what to do, let's face it, nobody wants to be told what to do, especially when we're older and we're just kind of like, okay, we're not going to sweat the small stuff. And, how dare them tell me what to do? So it's just ways to learn how to communicate. And there's lots of ways to learn how to, especially help people that have dementia and Alzheimer's, how to meet a goal without them feeling like we're babysitting them.
Right. Yeah, I totally relate to that, having gone through some of those experiences with my parents and some of aunts and uncles that are at that point. And it just brings back home. And I really hope people who do listen into this, that for their own businesses, they really hear you loud and clear, that, turn things around. Don't try and tell someone that they're wrong or correct them. Listen, ask, inquire, and take it